Welcome back to the homestead, everybody. Like we didn't have enough to take on today, we got a wheel bearing that we got to do on the expedition. So the wife got a hold of me there and told me that it was squeaking, and so she had it parked up at the barn. I went to get it, bring it down to the house, and the ABS light came on, which is usually one of the signs that you look for. So I brought it back to the house, jacked it up, and wiggled the front wheel, and we definitely got some play in the front wheel bearing here. So I already got the wheel off. I got the brake rotor and the brake caliper. I've just got it sitting up here for now, and we're going to get the rest of the wheel bearing off. I got to take the dust cap off, and then in behind here I've got these bolts I got to get out and get this thing off, and we'll get it hooked up. Oh, and I'm going to pull the wheel speed sensor right here as well. So here's the cable for the wheel speed sensor on the new wheel bearing. And this is going to be a bit of a pain in the butt. So it runs along through there and up behind the firewall. And so up in here, went and had a look, and it plugs in underneath the coolant overflow tank. I'm going to have to pull this tank off to access the plug. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so with the tank up, I'm just lifting it up here. I don't want to drain it and dump the coolant out. So that right there is the plug that the wheel speed sensor goes into. So you do have to get this thing off to get that out. I don't see any other way to do it. It's a bit of a nuisance, but it's up and it's unplugged. So now we'll go up, down, and undo the bolts to get the wheel bearing off. Okay, we got Sam here. I loosened him off, and he's gonna undo the wheel bearing bolts for me. He's got the ratchet and the 18mm socket. It's kind of an oddball size, but it's the one that's working. Okay, so Sam, I'm going to give you a little trick here. When you're pushing up on this thing, when you get up to here, if you're holding it like this, you can bang your knuckles on that, okay? So when you're pushing it up, use an open hand, okay? So try that. Like that, okay? That way you don't bang your knuckles on it. It's called a knuckle buster.
Again.
That's the last one. The wheel bearing should come out after this. Okay, so there was a dust cap at the end of this that mine was all seized on. I had to actually ruin it to get it off. So I don't have to buy a new one, but there's this 1/2 inch or 13mm nut on the end of here that I have to get off to pull this thing out. Okay, so there's the wheel bearing off. We got you see some packing coming out here, and there's a whole bunch of crap inside here. So I'm gonna have to spend some time cleaning all this out, and then put some fresh grease in there before we put the new bearing on. Okay, well, there's a bunch of stuff cleaned out of there. All cleaned up, looks pretty good. So I'm just going to grab some grease, and I'm going to grease in there really well, and slap the new wheel bearing in. Okay, so the new wheel bearing is on the shaft, and I'm just going to feed this the wiring for the wheel speed sensor back through and up inside. I'll couple that up last because it's not a real big deal. Okay, there's the wire is run through. I'll run it up in there once I've got the bolts done up. I've lost my helper, so I guess I'm doing the bolting myself. Okay, I've got the bolts all in and tightened down to, not to torque spec, but they're tightened down. I'm going to run this wire up into the firewall here, following the little holders, and couple it back up, and then we'll get the rotor on, brake caliper, and the wheel. Okay, and the speed sensor is hooked back up. Actually wasn't that hard getting it back in. Obviously, don't remember to reinstall your coolant tank before you fire things back up again. Okay, we've hooked up the coolant tank, hooked the hose back up. Like I said, the wheel speed sensor is already hooked up. I see now that I'm doing this that we're a little low on coolant, so I'm going to add some coolant before we fire things up. The only thing left now is put the wheel back on. I'm going to leave the the cap, the hubcap off, or the center cap off for now until I get the dust cap that we need for the center there to cover the opening of the bearing. So I'm just going to jack it up, get the my engineered jack stand out, and put the wheel on. Okay, folks, we got the job all done. Just going to use the torque wrench, torque down the wheel. Step out of the way here for a sec, Sam. So that's how we replaced the wheel bearing on this 2003 Expedition. This is my helper, Sam. He was a good help to us today. You learned something? Yeah? Okay, that's a good thing. So, don't forget to like the video, and if you're so inclined, subscribe to our channel, and stay in touch for more homesteading and random maintenance videos. God bless you from the Faith, Art, and Homestead.